Hello, everybody. How are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman. I'm the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been open now going on 12 years as of 2023. I'm not going to go into all of this mess, but I'm going to say this. I know you're looking at the communist red flag, China flag behind me, and also the half a nut fuck you. Well, in order for you to get more data on this, I'm going to tell you, just Google David Calhoun, ANSI. David, C-A-L-H-O-U-N, space ANSI, A-N-S-I. If you want, you do Tim Cook. You can even go half a nut, fuck you, ANSI. You could do that. That's even quicker. And I do that because this was left for me on a voicemail in 2019 because I exposed an impropriety. We assist companies in manufacturing and quality and special processes along with ISO certification and all derivatives. Our background is medical implants, aerospace, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution. I know I usually say aerospace, which comes in order. Aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution. That's the way it goes, where we deal with every industry under the sun. This video today is about Representative Chris Murphy, Connecticut, takes Lockheed-hush money through disbursements while China approves Sikorsky purchase. I know that was 2015, but most of you in Connecticut, as well as around the United States and around the world, do not know the underhanded deals that went on. And the underhanded deal will be very easy. I will give you a synopsis right now. In 2009, Lockheed Martin gets hacked by China, taking the F-35 data. They also sit on the ANSI, the American National Standards Institute board. All these companies and federal agencies sit on ANSI's board. Let's get that clear right off the bat. This way I don't have to keep on saying it. In 2012, a division of United Technologies, Sikorsky Aircraft, gets hacked by China, taking a lot of their data, Sikorsky Aircraft. In 2015, Lockheed Martin goes to purchase Sikorsky Aircraft from UTC. And in the Connecticut Mirror, it's stated, with China's okay, Lockheed Martin closes in on the purchase of Sikorsky Aircraft. With China's okay. You'll find out that China is an international regulator and that Mr. Christopher Murphy, along with Rosa DeLauro, along with Jim Himes, along with Dick Blumenthal, all went, yeah, great, working with communist China. Over here, you will see that Chris Murphy is holding a sign that shows you the F-35 and their Chinese counterpart, the J-31. It looks identical. You have the Black Hawk, Sikorsky product, or Sikorsky Lockheed right now, and you have the Z-20, which is the Black Hawk version of the the Chinese version. So yes, by looking at these, you know damn well that what was publicized is a fact, that technology was taken. And you have them, all praising Lockheed Martin for working with an international regulator. We will show you that. We have in the wings, too, he's sticking around for one more guy, Jim Himes. He will be out here very shortly as well. But we have Mr. Christopher Wray. Yes, Mr. Christopher Wray. And he always says, in fact, on November 15th, 2022, he stated the fact that TikTok is a detriment to all of American society along with China, because China and TikTok is in China, and they're taking our data through that electronic device. In fact, they've taken TikTok out of our soldiers' phones, from what I understand. Some of our congressmen and senators still maintain it. I'm sure probably Daryl Chris Murphy might have it. We don't know, though, but what are you going to do? And he probably wouldn't tell you the truth anyway. But anyway, this is what he usually says, and this is an actual quote that we got from the internet on a deposition that he gave. And it said, Chris Wray, FBI, says the whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S. and that Americans must step up to defend themselves. Well, it appears that I'm like the only one that's standing up to defend myself and my pride in America. Because no matter how much he talks about it, between 2015 and 2021, the FBI, and they sit on ANSI right now. Many federal agencies sit on ANSI, by the way, Chris, as I've told you in other videos. I told you in the Rosa DeLauro one and also the Blumenthal one that came down the pike, that yes, the FBI has been sat and controlled by communist China. They've also, every one of the federal agencies that sit on ANSI's board have gotten their data taken. We're going to continue on, Chris. But Chris, I have something to read to you that stems from a very old quote from Marcus Cicero. And he said this: A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and carries his banner openly, but the traitor moves amongst those within the gate freely. His sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the very halls of government itself. For the traitor appears not a traitor. He speaks in accents familiar to his victims, and he wears his face and their arguments. He appears to be baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men and women. He rots the soul of the nation, Chris. He rots the soul of the nation. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the society. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. The traitor is the plague. There's your introduction, Chris. Let's continue on. In 2013, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality. And there was a guy that was sent there, Dave Levy, who was a deputy director, Region 3, who was sent there to discredit me. And he could not do that. In fact, this is what Dave Levy happened to say. And we have him on audio file and also video. There is no restriction on you doing business unaccredited or accredited. And as I said before, ANAB has no problem with what you're doing. In fact, we support you, sir. That was about 50% approval. Wouldn't you say, Chris, that's 50%? I would. Then we have Randy Doherty. Randy Doherty, a man of mystery. Well, what I'd like to do before I show Randy to you is I'd like to show you this flow chart, and then I'm going to read you what Randy said to us. And I'm going to tell you why we didn't, and you'll find out why, because Randy wrote us, and at the time he was a technical advisor for ANAB, and he was just the principal and treasurer on the IAF's tax report. So, and the IAF is incorporated in Delaware, the International Accreditation Forum. So we're going to continue. And by the way, at the time in 2013, you had the ASQ, the American Society for Quality, and the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, all 50% ownership, which is 100% together, of the American National Crediting Board. In 2015, Randy Doherty, at the time, was the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and he was also the principal on the IAF tax report. He handed over leadership of the IAF to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. This guy is also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services, which certified the laboratory in Wuhan, China, that is suspect in the release of the COVID-19. Well, we have Miss Pamela Sale here, who gave a deposition. We will read it to you, who actually confesses to the possibility, probability, and more than likely fact that yes, because of the way the laboratory handles its protocols, it more than likely let that virus out. So, he's in the China National Accreditation Services. He's been involved with our quality since 1994. You also have the factor that Zhao Jinwu was mandated by Communist China to take your data through the China National Accreditation China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. You have ANSI and ANAB. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. You have federal agencies and corporations. One of the worst things is that you have, in 2017, Randy Doherty sitting on the Department of Homeland Security while Zhao Jinwu was sitting on the IAF Incorporated in Delaware. A private concern, Chris Murphy, a private concern being advertised on a government website, I thought was always a no-no. We did a video and they took Randy down. Yes, they did. But meanwhile, a a DHS member was on ANSI's board, getting paid like $262,000. Phil Matheson, he's still there, getting his federal salary. In fact, he got what is called a royalty payment. And a royalty payment is this, Chris, if you don't know, per the IRS. Unfortunately, the term royalty is not defined in the tax law. The regulations simply provide that whether a particular item of income is a royalty must be determined by the facts and circumstances of each case. And by ANSI having so many federal agencies that have had their data taken by China, they feel insulated, so the royalty could mean anything. Could be non-taxable, more than likely it is. So now we go to Randy Doty. This is in 2016. You heard Dave Levy say attaboy in 2015. So 2016, Randy Doty invites us to join either the IF or ANAB or both. And as I showed you, in 2015, Randy handed over leadership of the IF to a communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who's mandated to take our data, Chris, through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. Would you join? I'm not going to join that. And on top of that, sitting on the IAF is Lockheed Martin, who's an associate member that can vote on policy. Also, sitting on there is ANSI ANAB. I could not join again because ANAB sits on the IF, controlled over by communist China. So we said, no, thank you, but no. But here it is, and here goes the definitive part of this letter from Randy. He said this. He said, but we recognize and accept that there are conformity assessment bodies and accreditation bodies such as your body and your accreditation body that are not part of the IF and ILAC structure. While my colleagues and I at ANAB can attest to the confidence in the integrity and competence of accreditation bodies that are accredited by IAF member accreditation bodies, we cannot attest to this for your body. So he basically said that, Chris. Well, you take a look at Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. I've said this in many videos. They had their, they skip quality processes and standards. They sit on ANSI's board next to the USDA, FDA, CDC, NIH, etc. And they skip quality processes. So how can you have confidence in the integrity and quality that is dispensed by an organization that professes half a nut fuck you, said to me by their chairman in 2019. And for those of you who want to hear that information, please Google again, David Calhoun, Calhoun, and space ANSI. You can Google Oracle ANSI or Oracle half a nut ANSI. Whatever you do, you can do it to just about every corporation that sits on ANSI's board. It's craziness. It's absolutely terrible. You can go DHS. What is it? Alex Morakis, ANSI. You can find that. You can do Bodacek, who's a DOT head, and go ANSI after his name, or DOT half a nut ANSI, and you'll get that information. So their confidence in integrity and quality. Well, let me tell you this too as well. You have Lockheed Martin, sits on ANSI, sits on the IAF. You have them sitting over by the FAA, DOT, FTC, and FBI, who, when something happens, the FBI goes in and investigates, yet they sit on ANSI's board. The closeness is going to be the killer of our country, by the way, Chris, if you don't know. So anyway, you have this. An IFMLA, a multilateral agreement organization, is equivalent in accreditation to ANAB, which means this. You'll find Libya and Oslo, North Korea down here, and they got their certificate taken away years ago because of lack of payment. But what's strange is you have Iran and Pakistan sitting on the IF as an equivalent to ANAB. You have them sitting over by Lockheed and ANSI and ANAB on the IAF. You have those American organizations that are sitting by two countries that killed 30,000 Americans and admitted to it, okay? You have Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden. I'm not talking about the people of those countries. I'm talking about their politicians. Christopher, what is going on here? In fact, Lockheed Martin, at the time, was an associate member that can vote on policy, yet they didn't do anything to kick Iran or Pakistan, or at least sanction them. Never did that. Now that I said that, they're probably going to predate a letter and past date, and here's Lockheed Martin. Too bad, you've already been caught, Lockheed. So anyway, you have ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, is a private not-for-profit corporation. It's a non-federal agency, and it has corporations and federal agencies on board. They also have 10 different registrars, ANAB, ANSI does, in China that can issue an ANAB accredited certification. You have the factor, again, Chris, this is why we didn't join. He invited us to join. Randy Doty invited us to join, but we refused because we're proud Americans, Chris. Okay, by you going like this with Lockheed and China, you are far from being a proud American. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know something? In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I think he has this flag minus the half a nut fuck you. Maybe he likes that too. Maybe he took the whole flag. He probably has one of those in his bedroom or something. He's probably wrapped up in it. So you have the factor that ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. And they sat between 2015 and 21 with communist China, because Randy complimented China for taking over the IAF and being involved with our quality since 1994. We've showed you that in many videos. You can find that in the Rosa DeLauro and also the Blumenthal video about how Randy complimented Zhao Jinwu. So you have them sitting already on the IAF, controlled over by communist China. So you see again, Christopher Murphy, that's why we didn't join. And you also have the factor that sitting on the IAF, okay, sitting on the IAF right over by ANSI ANAP is Pakistan and Iran. Continue on. You have Zhao Jinwu standing here in the laboratory in Wuhan, China. He is, at that time, in 2017, he is the vice president, actually not the vice president, he is the chairman of the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and also the China National Accreditation Services in Beijing, China. He is the chief executive. He's handing over an ISO 17025 laboratory certification to this young woman here in Wuhan, China, in the Bio 4 level laboratory in Wuhan, where many people have stated that, yes, the virus snuck out of there, escaped. And Pamela Sales coming up very shortly, Chris, and you will hear her deposition. And yes, it's true, and it's factual, and it's, yes. We're going to continue on. You also, now we bring this into play too, Christopher Murphy, because I think you're oblivious to the world because of your position. I have no idea. But I know you're under a lot of stress and strain, people pulling you at you all the time. It's it's very tough to be in your position. It really is. It's no easy task. My mom was involved with politics for over 50 plus years, and she would get right around the middle of October calls from Rosa's office, DeLauro, calls from Christopher Dawes' office when he was there, Joe Lieberman, call once in a while from Blumenthal. That was before he was elected. He was, I guess, Attorney General at the time, and others within the political arena. So my mom always said this to me. She said, Daryl, she said, they called her because my mom had a lot of contacts within the state of Connecticut. And what happened, just as a sidebar to what I'm going through this, is that in 1971, my mom and dad were introduced to Bill and Hillary Clinton when they were going to Yale. She was introduced by Abe Ribicoff. He was to my mom, and Bill and Hillary and my parents became very good friends. In fact, I have a condolence letter, and thank you again, Mr. Bill and Hillary. I don't care about your politics, please. But they were nice enough to send the family a nice little condolence letter. But we're going to continue on, if we may. So you had Fauci getting inquisitioned by Senator Rand Paul. Rand Paul asked him about gain-of-function research, and Fauci said, I don't know. So we did research on this, and we found out that Fauci was lying. Many people know that Fauci was lying. They get documented. Well, we really made it concrete because this came out of a Chinese document that was converted over to English, and this is about upcoming second China-U.S. workshop, the challenges of emerging infections, laboratory safety, and global health and security. And let me tell you this, Chris. Anthony Fauci sits on the NIH. Well, NIH, CDC, USDA, FDA, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson all sit on ANSI's board. In fact, the FDA certified for third-party audits ANSI ANAB, so that, and they sit on the board of ANSI, of ANAB and ANSI. So they're buttering their bread on both sides. That certificate is worthless, to tell you the truth. But what are you going to do? Anyway, you find out that the first order of business is gain of function, and this was held between May 17th and 19th in 2017. And Chris, if you want this to corroborate my data, is that we have the actual booklet here that stated this, and here's Zhao Jinwu in the laboratory, handing over the certificate with a lot of information here about the China National Accreditation Services. You also have the factor, always they save the best for last. You know that, Chris? That's what life does. Because at the bottom, at the back of the page, is that you have the same item that I showed you blown up, about the workshop. You have the factor. I want to show you this. Here it is again. Randy handing over leadership in 2015 to Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. You have Zhao Jinwu as the chairman of the IAF Incorporated in Delaware and the China National Accreditation Services in Beijing, China, standing there in Wuhan, China. And now we're going to bring out Pamela Sale. Pamela Sale at the time was the vice president of accreditation for laboratory, both ANAB, which is a standalone registrar and accreditation body, as we've seen. They also own ASCLD Lab, both ANAB and ANSI. ANSI and ANAB own ASCLD Lab. And you also have the factor that you have A2LA, another laboratory accreditation body, sitting on ANSI, all by these forensic laboratories. In fact, in 2015, the Department of Forensic Science, run by the FBI in Washington, had their certificate, an ANAB accredited certificate, and ILAC, which is the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. I guess they both certified each other, whatever. And they had the certificate taken away because of the glaring non-conformances that were done through the process or non-process inside the laboratory. Here we go. This is what she said. She said this: one of the issues is that there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards that forensic labs around the country have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not. And I added this in. Okay, voluntary consensus standards fail since standards are meant to be uniform throughout a particular industry, laboratory, automotive, aerospace, electronics, medical services industries, and they are not, as Ms. Pamela Sales illustrated in her description. So she basically said the laboratory in Wuhan, China is out of control. We're going to go to Randy now. When Randy was the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IAF, and also the principal on the IAF tax report, he basically confesses that ANSI, ANAB, as underwriters, and you're going to see that. I also have the government contract that they're called out on, that as an underwriter, ANSI and ANAB, Chris, usually say, we only certify the system, we don't certify the product. By them taking over responsibility as an underwriter, that negates the whole system, only the system. It actually makes them liable for the product. I know you're going to have lawyers that are going to say, Daryl is wrong, it's impossible. You get 30 lawyers in a room, you'll have 30 opinions, ladies and gentlemen, and business owners. And that is the most amazing part of our legal system, which is also in shambles. Here's what Randy said. I'm going to fill in, rather than ISO 9001, I'm going to put ISO 17025 for laboratory. That will make you understand this better. The IAF MLA multilateral agreement works to facilitate global trade and vision of certified ones accepted everywhere. IAF MLA signatories are obligated to recognize certificates accredited by other IAF MLA signatories as equivalent. So a company with an ISO 17025 certification for laboratory that is accredited by the China National Accreditation Services, the IAF MLA signatory in China, is equivalent to an ISO 17025 certificate accredited by ANAB. So we dug into this whole accredited stuff, how equivalent they are. Well, we discovered on a website that ANSI ANAB are underwriters for both the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation and also the International Accreditation Forum. We're going to focus in on the IAF. The IAF is very special. We're focusing in on that. And this is what an underwriter is for those people who don't know. An underwriter is any party that evaluates and assumes another party's risk for a fee. There were questions that were asked to the government contract. And this is why, Chris, Communist China was infiltrated into all ANSI's government agencies that are there have had their data taken. And it's an example in these two questions that were asked to the designated contract person who is handling that. Response to questions for solicitation. Here it is. I'll hold it up because we have it on both sides. Here it is. Will the State Department consider a submittal responsive without the IAF and ANAB accreditations at the time of proposal? No. At the time a proposal is submitted, the contractor shall be accredited to ISO 17021 by a U.S.-based accreditation body that is a member of the International Accreditation Forum, IAF, whose accreditation scope is for 9001-2015. Number two, References to ANSI-ANAB must be changed as they unfairly and unnecessarily limit competition. The contractor, this is the answer, the contractor shall be accredited to ISO 17021, a U.S.-based accreditation body that is a member of the International Accreditation Forum, whose accredited scope includes 9001, 2015. Well, I want to say this to you, Chris Murphy, and I want you to look at this. That contract was from 9/4/2018. Zhao Jinwu was in control of the IF, the International Accreditation Forum, from 2015 to 2021. So by the State Department or any government agency saying that at the time of proposal, the contractor shall be accredited by a U.S.-based accreditation body that is a member of the International Accreditation Forum, they are inviting Communist China into the halls of any government agency that has that in a contract. Business people, my fellow citizens, do you understand that? I'm sure you do. It might be tough for Chris Murphy. And also, the contractor shall be accredited again to 17021, U.S.-based accreditation body that is a member of the International Accreditation Forum. What is that telling you? They invited China in 2018. And here is the actual contract number and what it says. And there you go. Right here. Here's the contract number. Hold it there for a second. It states ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum, which means this is a government entity saying that to you, which means this solidifies the efficacy of ANSI-ANAB being an underwriter and legally responsible for failure, whether it's in America with the F-35 landing gear or it's in China with the release of the COVID virus. Lockheed Martin 2009 gets hacked by China. Here on the various articles, 2009, you have it. I'd gladly send them to you. I'm not going to keep it here that long. You have CNN, you have the NSA talking about the details of Lockheed Martin losing that data. You have hackers stole Pentagon's newest fighter. And here we go with this. You have United Technologies, Sikorsky Aircraft. They're all sitting on ANSI's board, as you can see. And as I told you, IAF with Lockheed. And here it came out of the Washington Post with the three different, actually the two companies, Lockheed and Sikorsky, both getting their data taken. We have a letter that we tried to stop Lockheed in 2015. We tried to beg them, don't do this. And this is what they said. This lady, Lisa Gross, probably got it from somebody, some quality guy who knows nothing, but this is what she said. And by the way, we have companies, Chris, that do supply materials into OEMs, into aerospace. And this letter, I have no idea. But, when you see what happened, Lockheed Martin sits on the IAF. So are they going to say, no, you can go to Guberman PMC? No, because we don't want to be part of the IAF. At the time, they were communist run. Are you kidding me? And China was invited into Lockheed Martin. This is how. Daryl Guberman. In order to meet our customers' requirements, Lockheed Martin deals with entities that are certified through the International Accreditation Forum, IF. Your company is not a registrar of the IF, and therefore your accreditation is not recognized by Lockheed Martin. So, Chris, you heard that, not recognized by Lockheed Martin. Why did they say that? Very easily. Because they sit as an associate member that can vote on policy on the IF, the organization that they stipulate in that letter. Do you find anything wrong with that, Chris? Any impropriety? And they're an associate member that can vote on policy, yet they're sitting over by two countries, Iran and Pakistan, that admitted to killing 3,000 people, involvement in 9/11. And here's this. This is a good one, Chris. This is the actual news report from the Connecticut Mirror that said with China's okay, Lockheed Martin closes in on Sikorsky purchase. And this is a sentence out of the article that stated, but Connecticut lawmakers praise Lockheed Martin for clearing its last regulatory hurdle. This is what it really meant, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, my fellow citizens. Connecticut lawmakers, Rosa DeLauro, Richard Blumenthal, Chris Murphy, and Jim Himes praise our #1 military contractor, Lockheed Martin, for working with communist China. And we're going to bring this back out, and then we're going to close this down, Chris, because I think I think it's an embarrassment enough for you. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, my fellow constituents here in Connecticut and throughout the country, you see that Chris is holding up a placard that shows Lockheed Sikorsky and the two derivatives, both the F-35 and UH-60 and their Chinese counterparts. And Chris Murphy is saying, I love communism. And he basically did by saying, this whole praise Lockheed for working with an international regulator. And then you have poor Christopher Wray, FBI, who should supersede what this guy is saying, but he doesn't, because this is what Christopher Wray said. The whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S., and that Americans must step up to defend themselves. Well, you have the FBI, the director, stating that, and you have this guy, a senator, that's basically spitting in the eye of Christopher Wray. Business owners, this is government out of control. You see it now? My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS, @yahoo.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to your comments below, because this is absolutely a deplorable moment in Connecticut history and American history. I thank you.